You're not alone. If you need someone to talk to today, please contact Crisis Services Canada by either calling them at 1-833-456-4566 all hours of the day, or you can text them at 45645 at 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Time. Remember, you're not alone, and Crisis Services Canada is here to help. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special Wednesday night edition of Coffee with Graeme on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Graeme Forsyth. It's a live edition of Coffee with Graeme tonight since we weren't able to get a show out to you guys yesterday morning, but it's going to be very exciting tonight to show you guys who this guest is, to talk to this guest that I got on tonight. Of course, Coffee with Graeme brought to you by Evolve Green and Fabricland Winkler, our great sponsors here on the network of Coffee with Graeme. But yeah, the guest joining me tonight is a former CFL defensive tackle. He won the Grey Cup back in 2015 with the Edmonton Eskimos, who are now the Edmonton Elks, in his hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba, which was pretty darn cool to know about that. And he's also an MCN sports advising and skills development football advisor now. It's Eddie Steele, and Eddie was going to be joining me first on the prospect show, but I thought, why not have him on Coffee with Graeme, since this is a more Manitoba based show. But tonight I'm going to have a chance to ask Eddie about his role with MCN, as well as his playing career in the CFL, where he spent 9 years in the league with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the Edmonton Eskimos, who are of course the Edmonton Elks now, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We're also going to go back to his college days as well as his high school career as well. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming in the former CFL defensive tackle, Eddie Steele, on this edition of Coffee with Graeme on ASTV Productions. Joining me now on the show is the man himself, Eddie Steele. Eddie, it's finally great to get to meet you face to face. It's finally great to be doing this. I know we've been lining this up for about over a month now, but we finally got you here on the show. Even though it's not the prospect show, we got you here on Coffee with Graeme. How are you doing? It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to officially meet you as well. I'm doing excellent, and I appreciate you having me on. It's good to be here chatting with you, and I didn't have this plan, but I have my coffee sitting next to me as well, so it's perfect.
Yeah. Right on, right on. Eddie's got the coffee. I got the coffee mug here. It's gonna be a good time tonight. Gonna be a good time. And you're in the Mountain Time Zone right now, or are you not in Winnipeg right now?
Yeah, no. So when I retired from football, I set my roots down out here in Alberta, in Edmonton. I had a good opportunity in terms of work for life after football, so it was kind of a no-brainer for me. And yeah, I've been here now for a little over 2 years, and fully immersed in the community. And I built a lot of good relationships out here when I was playing with the Elks, and so it really helped with the transition to life post football.
Yeah, and you ended up being the football advisor for MCN Sports Advising and Skill Development. How has that journey been for you? Of course, life after football, being able to continue a career in football with MCN.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I feel like I've been fortunate enough to live out my childhood dream, and it would be foolish of me not to pass on the knowledge and just the wealth of knowledge and experience that I've really had to go against and learn and figure out on my journey. And it's I feel like being a pro, I've been put in this position to be able to pass that along. So many guys I know, they don't like to coach and they don't like to give back, and I feel like that's a huge part of being a pro, is giving back, because I had people give back for me and to kind of help pave my way in my journey. So yeah, it was something, that a responsibility I take seriously, and I love it, ultimately giving back to the youth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just using what you learned, the lessons you learned along the way to pass it down to the youth, like you said, which is great. Could you dive into what your role has been like with MCN being their football advisor?
Absolutely. So it's still fairly early on in terms of me joining the MCN team, but essentially what my role is to advise kids, youth in the different directions, different avenues that might present themselves in terms of football and moving on to the different levels. So many people think that you have to go college to go pro, but that's just not the case. There's so many different routes that you can go, and it might not be as intricate as the hockey, for example. And that's one of the biggest facets of what MCN does. But there are different ways to go to achieve and accomplish your goal, and not just accomplishing your goal of getting to the next level, but just how to have success in your sport with where you're at, how to have success in life. I've faced a lot of ups and a lot of downs in my career, on the field, off of the field, and if I could pass on again some of that knowledge of some of the do's and don'ts to how to carry yourself appropriately through life, that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm in the position I'm in. My journey wasn't always just a smooth trajectory. It's kind of as you see my finger. That's how my journey was. It was up and down. It was kind of rocky, and there was some good, there was some bad. So I just want to pass that along and help the next generation maybe not make some of the same mistakes that I made along my journey.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that about your finger, because I remember when I was playing flag football. I think I was 14 years old when this happened. I was in practice, and QB threw a ball that was underthrown, and I was playing receivers. So I thought, you know what, I want to make a play and bat it down, and I ended up messing up my finger. I'm not going to show it up close because it might be a bit awkward, but I messed up my fingers. So how do you end up messing up that finger of yours?
Life in the trenches, 17 straight years of football, playing
Yeah,
defensive line, offensive line. I couldn't even tell you when exactly it happened. There's so much
yeah.
banging, and it's so physical down there. It probably happened at some course during a game, and you kind of try and pull it back to straighten it out. But yeah, no, it's not getting straight. That's for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. A lot of moments I bet where it could have happened, but hey, that's just the risk you're gonna have to take in a hard sport, a hard hitting sport like football, of course, with how physical it is. But how did the opportunity for you come to be to become an advisor? Like, what were the conversations like between you and the owner of MCN, Matt Gorman, for you to be on their team?
Yeah, it's really unique how it all came to play, actually. So my current job is I'm a salesman with a company called Share Canada, and it's a chemical maintenance company. And I do quite a bit of business with the AHS hospital facilities out here in Alberta. And I was in a facility in Westlock, which is about an hour north of Edmonton, doing some business with the maintenance supervisor there. And we just got to talking, and he told me about MCN, and he's on the team as well in the hockey side of things. And he just was telling me about it. And like I said, I'm deeply passionate about uh, helping the next generation, and providing and bestowing that knowledge upon the youth. And we just kind of hit it off throughout that conversation, and here we are. A few months later, I get in touch with Matt, and the rest is history, and I'm on the team, and it really happened quite quickly. So I do have to give a shout out to my man Neil, because if it wasn't for Neil, I wouldn't have known about MCN, wouldn't have had the opportunity. So Neil Brimage is really the bridge that got me there.
Big shout out to Neil for sure for getting Eddie on this path that he's on now, being an advisor for MCN. Moving away from MCN now, just going all the way back before you were even a Manitoba Bison in your university days, but playing as a Kelvin Clipper in high school football. I know that's such a long time ago now, but from what you remember, just talk about the experiences that you went through there and to get into where you were, I guess, in your university career playing with the Bisons, just your time with the Kelvin Clippers.
Yeah, so my high school career, when you look at the overall success, wins and losses, wasn't very good. And it's funny because I played high school ball with a couple guys who played college football at the next level and actually pro football, Donald or MS Young. So me and him, we played on the same D-line in high school and university and the pros. So you would think with that much talent, you'd have a ton of success, but I started every game from grade 9 to 12, and my overall record was 4-28-1. So I averaged one game per season. So it wasn't a lot of success. But the one positive is when you're a good player on a bad team, you get noticed. So I got noticed pretty heavily by different college coaches, Canadian, American, and Coach Dobie offered me a full scholarship. He was the first person at U of M to offer me the full scholarship and to the opportunity to stay at home because school can be pretty expensive, especially I was looking down south to North Dakota. And they offered me a half-ride scholarship, but even with a half, I'd still have to pay out of pocket like $15K American. And my parents, they weren't into that. So when I had the opportunity to A, stay at home, B, have everything paid for but my books, it was a no-brainer for them. So that's how my high school career went. Not very successful, but personally very successful.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Of course, not awesome, just not having that team success, but being able to still play a decent, strong game and get noticed by a university like you did with the Manitoba Bisons. But just going back to that, just the team struggles and stuff. What do you say that those were good learning curves in your young career of just knowing that even though you are playing strong out there, you're not always going to get the results you want as a team?
Good question. And you're absolutely right. And it really tests your mental state because so oftentimes guys will fold, or we would have practices where you'd have like 15 guys at practice and not even enough to field the full proper practice. But what are you going to do with that? And what are you going to do with those tough times? That type of character was really hammered home to me by my parents that, you stick things out, you don't just quit, and you finish the job that you started. And it did build a lot of lessons. It taught me how to lose because it's easy to win. It really is. It's hard to lose. And when you lose, you learn a lot more. And it's so cliche, but it's so real. The lessons that you learn from losing because you nitpick every flaw. And probably due to that fact is why I became kind of a technician at my position and really wanted to be a leader on my team and kind of pull guys along behind me. And that really paid fruition throughout my college career.
We always hear a lot of people talk about the mental side of sports a lot and how a lot of people say it's all mental. I always like to say it's 50% mental, 50% physical because you can have all the physical gifts in the world, but if the mental side isn't there, you're not going to do very well. And then vice versa, if you have the mental game, but you don't have those physical abilities, then you're not going to be very successful as well. I just want to get your opinion on just how important truly the mental side of things for you it was in your career.
It was a big aspect in my career. And I've seen guys who are mentally strong. I've seen guys who are mentally weak. And you can, spot them out pretty instantly. Where I've really had to face my demons in terms of my mental battles, in terms of staying strong mentally, is going through a potentially career-ending injury. And the rehab process and all the work that had to go into that off season. That's where I think, overcame any mental hurdles I ever could have faced in terms of the difficulty. And that's really, I feel, what made me a better football player, a better person, was going through that tough time of a potential career-ending injury in your prime of your pro career. But I'll be honest, Graeme, I've seen so many guys who are just so mentally weak, and they don't last. They have all the physical gifts, like you mentioned, but if that mental strength and that mental fortitude isn't there and that perseverance, guys aren't going to last. And I've seen it so many times at every level of football.
Yeah, it's like a really nice car without an engine. You could look really nice on the outside, but if you don't have that engine, which is like the brains of the operation, you're not gonna be able to run that thing, right? But just speaking about that, your potential career threatening injury, just what exactly was it, and just talk about what that process was like of getting back to yourself.
Yeah, so from the beginning, I was playing with Hamilton. It was the year 2012, in my prime, playing some good football, and we were playing a game in Edmonton in Week 14 of the CFL season. And it was early on in the game, and I got hit from the side. It was a screen pass, so I was chasing the screen or the running back down after he caught the ball, and I got hit from the side by an O lineman, and I landed on my knee. So picture this is my leg, and this is my knee bent, so straight leg bent. So I landed on my knee bent, and there's a tendon at the bottom of your knee called the patella tendon. It goes over top of your kneecap, and the tendon snapped down here and sprung up, and tendons are like elastic bands. So it was really tight. So it sprung up high into my quad, and now there's nothing holding my kneecap in place. So my kneecap had shifted over to the outside of my leg, and I just had a big empty pit where my kneecap was supposed to be. And I just remember laying on the turf, looking up at the stars in the night sky, thinking, this is it. I'm done. I couldn't move my leg at all. It was so bad that they had to bring the ambulance out. It was like a 45-minute delay in the game. And it's a bad injury when the ambulance has to back onto the field. Like that, you don't see it too often. So that's when it's a bad one. And so the injury happened in Edmonton. I was playing for Hamilton at the time. So what I had to do is they rushed me right to a hospital that was near the stadium in downtown Edmonton. I spent the night there, and then they didn't want me flying all the way from Edmonton to Hamilton because it's about 4-hour flight, 3.5-hour flight in air, and they were worried about me having blood clots being in the air that long with the injury. So they flew me home right to Winnipeg. The minute I land, another ambulance picks me up, takes me to the hospital for emergency surgery the next day. So I didn't even get to go into the locker room to pack up my stuff that was in my locker at the game. I didn't get to go back to Hamilton to go and pack up my apartment or anything. Teammates had to go and do that, throw all my bags and stuff like that in my car, put my car on a train, and ship it back to Winnipeg. So it was just a series of unfortunate events. And the rehab process, I've seen that injury happen to about 4 other guys throughout my pro career, and none of them have been able to come back the same way they were before the injury. And the rehab process is, like I said, really where I changed my mental approach, and I really attacked my rehab. I wasn't passive with it. I was quite aggressive, changed up my entire lifestyle, what I was eating, the way I was training, what I was putting in my body. And that really is what sprung my career. I probably was spending 4 hours a day, 7 days a week in the gym, doing the rehab, doing the strength training, getting my legs back. And yeah, it was a grind. And not every day, not every workout was, hunky dory. But I put the work in, and I played my best football actually in my career after the injury, which is amazing.
Yeah, just looking at the stats, he had a career year back in 2014, which after an injury like that, of just going through that to be able to get to a point where, like you said, you ended up playing better football than you were before is just absolutely insane, amazing. We'll get into your CFL career more after the commercial break, but I just want to dive into that university career that you had with the Manitoba Bisons. You ended up winning a Vanier Cup back in 2007. Just speak about that year specifically from what you remember of going through that journey of winning Canadian university football's ultimate prize.
Yeah, very special time. Our team, we were like a brotherhood. So the rules were a little bit different. When I was coming out of high school into college, back then you could play full 5 years of junior football and then still have your full 5 years of eligibility for CIS. So I was coming out of high school as a 18-year-old kid, and our university team had guys who were 25, 26, 27, who were 28, because back then you could go out of high school, play junior until you're 23, and then go and play 5 years of college. So we had a really old team. So I really wanted to fit in with these older guys, and these guys were men essentially, and I was a little boy still. And I feel like that really helped just sharpen me, toughen me up a little bit, because I wasn't just playing college football against guys my age. I was playing against men, and I needed to hold my own and learn how to do that. So the Vanier Cup year, we'll rewind to 2006. We were undefeated that year, and we lost in the conference semifinals to Saskatchewan, University of Saskatchewan. Probably should have beat them because we had a pretty dominant team that year. So that really motivated us for 2007, and we came out and we pretty much just ran things in Canada, ran through everybody in the playoffs. Western was a highly touted team coming out of the OUA out east, and they came here for the game before the Vanier, and we beat them like 55-8 or something like that. We just put it on them. We just steamrolled everybody that year. We were just the best team in Canada. And fortunate enough to go to Toronto and win the Vanier Cup against St. Mary's University. And I got the ring right here, actually.
So right on.
That's the Vanier with the University of Manitoba Bisons. Last Vanier for them. So pretty special moment to go undefeated and just run the table and have the success we had.
Yeah, especially with that being the most recent Vanier Cup that the U of M has won. And yeah, just for you to get that opportunity to play with men at that point was absolutely a great experience for you. Just what did that teach you about just fitting into a locker room as that younger guy back then?
A lot of do's and don'ts, because you're young, you're immature. Lots of these guys are, like I said, 27. They have families, they have kids, they're married. And, when you're 19 years old, I mean, you're just not on the same level, right? So it forced me to mature up. Some of the stuff that I would do, the dumb jokes and stuff that weren't funny to the older guys, you just learn kind of how to find your groove and fit in with the older guys, and it just wises you up. And again, football-wise, those guys, they really took it seriously. Like, it wasn't just a game. Like, it was real for them, because most guys, it was their last opportunity to play football, and they realized they're getting older and they can't play forever, so they really took it seriously. And that forced me to take it seriously, forced me to get in the gym. I used to not ever be a workout guy, and it really forced me to get in the gym, because if you're not doing the right things, you're going to be left behind. And you didn't want to be that guy that was going to cost that team, because there was some savages on that team, and you didn't want them to ride you, because it would be pretty bad. They would get on you, and they would grill you pretty hard. So I didn't want to be that guy getting grilled.
Yeah, well, it definitely forced you to become a better player, like you said, start getting into the gym, and yeah, you ended up having a 9-year career in the CFL. We're going to talk about Eddie's CFL career in just a moment after this commercial break. I've been joined by the 2015 Grey Cup champ, football advisor of MCN Sports Advising and Skill Development, Eddie Steele, on this edition of Coffee with Graeme. Stick with us. We'll be back in just a moment after this commercial break. premature on my part of putting the Coffee with Graeme text up there. But yeah, welcome back to Coffee with Graeme on ASTV Productions. Of course, we are live right now on our website at astvproductions.com, on our Facebook at ASTV Productions, as well as on our Twitter at Amateur Sports TV. Wherever you guys are watching on this Wednesday night, I want to take the time to thank you guys. Of course, Eddie Steele, former CFL defensive tackle, 2015 Grey Cup champion with the now Edmonton Elks, and a guy that is a football advisor now for MCN Sports Advising and Skill Development. I've just been talking to Eddie about his time with MCN so far. We've talked about his university career with the Manitoba Bisons a bit, as well as his time a bit with the Calvin Clippers, and we talked about some stuff relating to career-threatening injury that he had back in 2012 with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. We're going to dive into your CFL career now, Eddie. You had a 9-year career in the league with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the Edmonton Elks, as well as, now the Edmonton Elks, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders to end off your career. How did it come about to you being able to play in the CFL? Did you go through the draft? Were you unsigned coming in? How'd that come to be for you to land on the Hamilton Tiger Cats first off?
Yeah, so throughout my university career, I had a lot of personal success. Like you mentioned, won the Vanier in 07, and I was a backup at that point in time because we had our defensive line. Out of the 4 starters ahead of me, 3 of them were all Canadians. So we had a ton of depth. So I was the next guy up. After we won in 2008, I took over a full-time starting job. And then in 2009, I guess after 2008 season, I went to the East-West Bowl. And that's when I really got on the map of the pro scouts, because that's where, all the up-and-coming talent for the next football season, next draft year goes and has the game, and they practice together all week. So 2009, ahead of the season, I was ranked as the number 17th prospect in Canada and had a heck of a season, really balled out. Midway through the year, I was ranked the number 12th ranked prospect. And then after that season, they had me as the number 9th ranked prospect. So kept climbing up those draft boards. Went to the Combine, really killed it. Had a ton of success at the Combine. Interviews with every team. And draft day, 2 days before the draft day, actually, Ed Hervey, who was the GM in Edmonton, he called me up and said, if you're there at number 7, because that's when they had their pick, first pick was number 7, he says, we're going to take you. So I thought for sure I was going to Edmonton, unless I got drafted earlier. And so draft day comes around, had a huge draft party. It was pretty overkill, not on my part, but it was just so hyped up because Global News was there, CTV was there, had about 100 friends and family. Like, it was a big deal. Because I was one of the highest ranked prospects coming out of Manitoba in a long time. And number 7 pick comes around, and Edmonton selects a defensive back. And I just kept falling down the draft board, finally got drafted at 22 overall by Hamilton, which was pretty cool. Just a side note, my dad actually played a year of pro football, and he played with Hamilton. So it was kind of cool to get drafted to the team that your pops played for. And what's really funny looking back is that DB that the Elks picked at the number 7 spot. He lasted like 2 seasons in the league. He never really did any noise, and out of the league just like that, had a quick cup of coffee, no pun intended. So it's funny just how it all works out. And I always would tell people it's not when you get drafted to in terms of number on the board, it's where you get drafted to in terms of the organization, because there's so many different fits and it just needs to work out for you. And really the stars need to align. And I'm very fortunate that Hamilton was the team that picked me and gave me an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And, I feel like you're probably motivated coming in, even though, like you said, it's about the team that drafts you, not the placement. But at the time, how motivated were you to prove those teams that didn't pick you wrong heading into your career?
I was mad. I was really mad because, you're a hyped up prospect. I was thinking I was going to be a first round draft pick, and you fall to what would be the 3rd round. I mean, that's pretty disappointing, and didn't handle it the best. I was pretty pouty and whatnot, and especially having this big party. And at that point, TSN was covering the draft, and they would only show the first 2 rounds. So I really wanted to see myself, get called on the TV screen and have them talk about me and things like that. But that never happened, and didn't handle that situation as good as I could have. Another learning point throughout my journey. But it all worked out. I responded, and like I said, I was mad. Came into training camp, had a really good training camp as a rookie. Ended up spending most of the year on the practice roster. And so when you're on the practice roster, you're technically a free agent. Like, other teams can try and sign you off of the practice roster. And what had happened is about halfway through the year, Calgary tried to sign me off of the practice roster from Hamilton. So Hamilton can either let you go, or if they want to hold on to you, they have to activate you to the active roster so no other teams can touch you. So Hamilton didn't want to let me go because they knew they had a good young prospect. So they activated me. So I started getting those big game checks and all that, and that was sweet for about 3 weeks. And then Hamilton tried to put me down on the practice roster again. That day that they put me down on the practice roster, Toronto called about an hour later trying to sign me off the practice roster. So Hamilton, of course, didn't want to let me go, so they were forced to activate me again. So I got a lot of good game checks just due to the fact that other teams were trying to get me, but Hamilton didn't want to let me go. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah, for sure. It was like those teams were trying to sweep you away from them, but they're like, wait a minute, we want to see
Exactly.
what this guy can do, for sure, for sure. Just getting to play 18 games in 2011. You put up 28 defensive tackles and you recorded a sack. Just being able to come in your first full year of CFL action. Just what was that like to be able to contribute in that way of putting up some defensive tackles and a sack as well?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome that 2011 year. Full-time starter that year, started every game, played almost every play. I remember defensively, my sacks were a little down, but in terms of the tackles and just stats, I was up there for defensive tackles, and I was a 23-year-old kid starting every game, by far the youngest in my position, and throughout the league as a starter. So that was really cool. I had some good mentors that I got to play with. That sack, funny enough, this is kind of how full circle my career has gone. First pro game of my career starting was against the Bombers, hometown team. Of course, you would always love to play for them, but never got to. So I had 5 tackles and a sack that game, if I remember correctly. And my last game of my pro career was with the Riders playing against Winnipeg in the playoffs in 2018. And I had 3 tackles and a sack that game. So it was kind of cool how first game, last game against Winnipeg had really good games against them. So it's just total full circle. But going back to 2011, yeah, getting to play against legends like Anthony Calvillo and all these big time guys that I grew up watching and, dreamed of being able to play at that level. It was pretty sweet. And we had a lot of success that year. Team wise, we were 500, but we were kind of pegged to be kind of worse off than we were. We end up in the playoffs going to Montreal and beating them in arguably one of the best games in CFL history. It went to overtime and we beat them 54-51, I think, something, or 48, something crazy. And just an absolute shootout. And then we end up coming to Winnipeg for the East Final. And it was so cold. Coldest game I've ever played in that day. It was like minus 29 with the wind chill. It was ridiculously cold. And honestly, we lost that game before it even started because Odell Willis, I'm sure many people in Manitoba are familiar with Odell.
Yeah.
He, the mayor of Swaggerville,
Yeah.
he was warming up before the game with no shirt on in that type of cold temperature. And all of our skill positions, our receivers and running backs, DBs, they couldn't believe it. They just were shocked that he was out there with no shirt on. And most of these Americans are from down south where it's warm and they've never seen these types of temperatures. And they couldn't stop talking about it in the locker room. And the game was over from that point on because we're just mentally shot. And Odell kind of did us in. It was pretty funny. When we were teammates later on in our careers, I always would joke with him about that.
Yeah, I remember watching that game and I remember seeing Odell without the shirt on before the game, and I was like, man, this guy's ready to go. The mayor of
Yes,
Swaggerville is going to
he's
do his thing.
nuts.
Just nuts, the energy that he brings to a team. But just being able to play in the cold in the CFL, especially in playoff time, it gets really cold. I know, like, not only that experience you had with Hamilton going up against Winnipeg in your first season, but as well as that Grey Cup that you had a chance to play in. It gets really cold here, especially in Winnipeg. What's that been like for you throughout your career of getting that opportunity to play in insanely cold weather down here in the north?
You know what? It's funny because when you're young, you're flying off adrenaline and you go sleeveless. It's always on the line, the O&D line. It's always a big thing to wear no sleeves and have your arms out and kind of just prove you're tough. So when I was young, I was all into that. But as I got older, man, I got softer. I said, forget this. I'm being comfortable out here. I'm wearing long sleeves. I don't care how I look. I need to be comfortable to be able to play good football. So it's funny. You see the evolution and just the maturity, the I don't give a care factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ultimately, you got to be comfortable out there. It's no fun sitting on the bench, shivering like that. And they have the big heaters on the sideline. But the truth of the matter is, yeah, they'll get you warm. But the minute you step away from it, you feel 10 times colder. So it just plays even more of a psychological battle. You feel like you have to stand in front of it all the time. So you're better off not even going and touching or getting near the heater because it'll just make you feel that much colder when you walk away.
Yeah, I bet. And then, like you said, you just want to keep coming back to it, and then you're not focused as much on the game. So definitely, comfortability over trying to look cool out there is the way to go, especially with the insanely cold weather here in Winnipeg. Especially, we get like minus 40 sometimes, which is just insane. Yeah, but you spoke about mentors. Some of the great mentors that you had a chance to play with. I'm sure you had a chance to play with some great guys, of course, in Edmonton and Saskatchewan. But take me back to some of your mentors that you had a chance to, learn from in Hamilton, your playing days there.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys who really come to mind are linebackers, Jamal Johnson, Ray Williams. Those guys really took me under their wing. These guys were all-stars at this point in time, and at the prime of their careers, probably about 6-7 years older than me. But they accepted me. Another guy, Justin Hickman, he was very crucial in my development. I wouldn't have been the guy I was if it wasn't getting the opportunity to play alongside him. He was a defensive end. He led the league in sacks in 2011, so I got to play next to him every snap of the way, and he ended up going down to the NFL for a couple of years with the Colts and then came back up and finished his career off in Canada. And he told it to me like it was. He was a very dry guy. So there was just no BSing, just tell it like it is. And, he told me when I was doing well, told me when I sucked, and told me what I needed to do to be better. And I really give Hickman a ton of credit in terms of me just honing in on my skills and becoming a better player that I could be. So those are some guys for sure in Hamilton that I looked up to and that really mentored me.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I agree. You had a chance to play with, of course, Jamal Johnson, Hickman, and some other great guys there, guys that, like you said, all-stars at the time. We're going to take another commercial break here in the show. We're going to continue talking about Eddie's CFL career coming up here on Coffee with Graeme. I've been joined by Eddie Steele, former CFL defensive tackle, 2015 Grey Cup champion, and football advisor for MCN Sports Advising and Skill Development. I'll be right back with Eddie after this commercial break from Evolve Green here on Coffee with Graeme on ASTV Productions. Stick with us.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance. Quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
Back here on Coffee with Graeme with Eddie Steele. It's been a lot of fun getting to talk to Eddie about his CFL career recently, as we have been in the last segment of the show before we went to our most recent commercial break. Of course, we are live right now on our website at astvproductions.com, our Facebook at ASTV Productions, and our Twitter at Amateur Sports TV. Anyone watching right now, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your Wednesday night for watching and tuning into Coffee with Graeme. But yeah, Eddie, will continue talking about your CFL career now. Of course, we spoke about that career-threatening injury that you had back in 2012 with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So you ended up playing 13 games that season, correct? I'm pretty sure from what I saw. Just speak about, before the injury, what types of strides, improvements that you were seeing in your game before suffering that brutal injury.
Well, yeah, that 12 was a really challenging year for me because, as we mentioned, 2011, I was the youngest starter in the CFL, having a ton of success, really coming into my own, and my ego really got inflated, probably for the worse, not the better. And I thought I was the man. And so we had a new coaching staff take over in 2012, brand new coaching staff. And whenever there's a new staff, you got to earn it again. They don't know anything about you. It's starting from scratch. So that year, typically most teams, they want to start one Canadian on the defensive line. And that year, the coaches and staff, they wanted to go All-American across the board on the defensive line. So I went from starting every game the year before to becoming a backup that year. And it was a battle for me. I wasn't having the opportunity to play as much as I would have liked at all. Me and my defensive line coach, we kind of butt heads. And I'm not one to I always do as I'm told. I'm not one to give attitude, talk back. That's not my MO at all. But I just felt like he had it out for me. And he really was so gung-ho about thinking Americans are better than Canadians. And that just didn't sit right with me. But I kept my mouth shut, worked hard. So finally, come week 14, I think due to injury, I finally had an opportunity to start again. And I was so pumped up, had a great week of practice, came out of the gates, guns blazing that game against Edmonton, and boom, that's when the injury happened. And it happened for a reason, for sure, to humble me, and I think to make me hungrier and really just instill in that work ethic and the discipline that I needed to have in order to overcome it, to become the true player that I could have been. So 2012 was a tough year for me. There's no denying it. Probably my worst year ever of pro football. But you know what? Because of that year, I was able to have the career that I did have.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of crazy things happened to you that season. And just going back to that point about just want to start all Americans on the D-line, in my opinion, it doesn't matter where you come from if you're good enough to play the players. And we've seen in the CFL that some of the best players in the league are in fact Canadian, but that's a discussion for another day for sure.
Yeah,
just
that's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure. So you ended up getting traded or released the next season to Edmonton. What happened there?
Yeah, the business of the CFL. So I was coming off of the injury in 2012, and I was going to be a free agent anyways, but Hamilton called me up 2 weeks before free agency, and they released me, which it stung because the team that drafted you just outright cuts you. But it was a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to be a free agent 2 weeks before free agency hit, so I could go and talk to teams. And again, like I mentioned, how my career has gone full circle. Well, the team that expressed the most interest in me was Edmonton, and I ended up signing a contract with them 5 days later. So the team in the field where I got hurt and I thought my career was over ends up being the team in the field where I'm playing my next football, and my next training camp is where I'm at. So it was kind of crazy the way it all happened that way.
Yeah, I bet. Just like you said, a lot of things seem to come full circle for you. Of course, your first sack versus your last sack against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and then, like you said, that injury on Edmonton's field, and then you end up playing for the Edmonton, and for the next 4 years in your career. Just speaking about that, did how much time did it take for you to get back to full strength, full health, to being able to play your first game with Edmonton?
Yeah, well, like I said, with that injury, I've seen it happen to 4 or 5 guys, and they've never come back to be the same. So the injury for me happened in October, and I really babied it at the beginning, the first month and a half, to let it heal before I aggressively went after my rehab and strength building. So it happened in October, and I was full go participant in training camp in June, late May, June. So 6 months, and I was full go. And that's just, again, a testament to the work that I put in, because normally you're not coming back after 6 months after a major tear like that. And we're talking, this is worse than an ACL, those types of common injuries you hear. And even those guys you don't really see come back after 6 months. So it's pretty remarkable, actually, even just speaking about it, because you think about it, but you don't talk about it. And when you say it out loud, you realize, whoa, that's kind of crazy. The fact that I came back as soon as I did, and I was full go at training camp, and yeah, full participant that upcoming season in 2013.
Yeah, and just going back to that recovery side of things, speaking about the diet you ended up going on, the way you were eating, could you just speak about that and how that helped throughout your recovery?
Yeah, lots of chicken, lots of broccoli, clean eating, lots of greens. Essentially, it was meat and greens. Really disciplined, really strict. Like, you're weighing out your meat portions, you're measuring out your carbs, your rices, your veggies. You're not drinking juice and all that stuff. It's just very strict, almost like a fitness competitor with how strict they need to be, leading up to a competition. And it was like that all off season. And I really saw my body transform, and, I got really strong. So obviously, when you have a strict diet like that, you're going to see the benefits. And that's really snowballed into the rest of my life. I'm still fairly strict with my diet, and because I realized diet is more important than even the exercise itself, because it's what you put in your body, the fuel. That's how your body is going to be successful and thrive. It's totally what you put in. And I always tell people, you can't outwork a bad diet. I don't care how hard you train, how much you sweat, how much you run. You can outwork a bad diet. And I've seen it with so many guys.
Yeah, it's like going back to that car analogy, I guess, about the engine. It's like, imagine an athlete. You could either eat the best stuff, or you can go out every day and eat Big Macs, fast food, stuff like that. It's not going to do very well. The diet, very important, like you said, to not only football players, but any athlete, in my opinion. But just talking about your time in Edmonton in 2013, how many games did you end up playing? I think I saw on the CFL website it was 8 games, but I could be wrong there.
Yeah, so we had a really deep defensive line that year. So there was me, Donnie O, like I said, who was from Winnipeg, and he had just signed a pretty big contract in Edmonton the year before. Elmondo Sewell, probably one of the best D tackles in CFL history. Ted Laurent, who's in Hamilton, another stud Canadian who might go down as one of the better ones in history. So it was us 4. So we were loaded, and you only can play 3. So I was coming off the injury. I played in 1 game early in the season, week 2, had a couple of tackles, but they wanted to go in a different direction and play those other 3 guys. They weren't, they all had pretty good seasons, but they weren't having, world beater type seasons. So finally, late in the season, I get another opportunity to get in a game, play in a game, and I kind of took it and ran with it. I wasn't going to be denied. And I will say this, leading up to that, I practiced like an animal. Most guys during practice, it's pretty chill. But I thought, I'm not playing. Like, I got to go. Like, I got to show these coaches I'm out here hungry. So I practiced like an animal all season, and I know the coaches noticed. So when I finally got in the games later on in the year, had some sacks and put up some good numbers, and kind of just took it and ran with it. And it was a really strong end of the season for me that year. So it was pretty awesome. But again, it's the mentality, right? Most guys would fold during that type of a situation, or they would just get lazy, or they wouldn't work out hard, or they wouldn't practice hard. But that's not how I approached it. I'm a grinder, so I'm gonna work to get what I want, and that's what I did that year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you got rewarded for it, being able to be in the lineup and have a strong finish to your season. Just speaking about that first game back, after all you went through with the recovery, just earning your spot in the lineup, I bet there was so much emotion coming from inside you just in that first game back of playing in CFL action.
Well, again, you want to talk this whole full circle business. My first game back that year, I'm playing with Edmonton against Hamilton. You know what I mean? It's just that's how it worked out. So I'm playing against all my former teammates and guys that I were teammates with for three years, and and here I am coming off of this major injury. Lots of nerves, lots of anxiousness, but overall the game went pretty smooth. Like I said, I think I had 2 or 3 tackles, had a pretty good game. And I remember flying home after the game and being on the plane and thinking, wow, I did it. Here I am, got to play a game, and I'm back pretty much. I made it through, because you're always nervous about getting hurt again. And once I got those butterflies and those hits out of the way, it was kind of like riding a bike. You're back at it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The training wheels were off, and Eddie still going full speed at it again at 100%. Moving into that the 2014 season with Edmonton, you guys, for you end up putting up a career year, 30 defensive tackles, 1 ST. I'm not sure what that stands for, but check special teams tackle, 6 sacks and 1 interception. Just to be able to have a type of season like that, having a career year with Edmonton, just, talk about the type of impact you truly had on the team that season to have that type of year.
Yeah, it was a pretty epic season, and it started off with a bang. Week 1 against BC, came out of the gates hot, had 3 tackles or 2 tackles, a sack, an interception, and it was just a great way to start the season. I had a really good training camp that year. We had a new coaching staff come in Edmonton, because we had a pretty down year in 2013 overall as a team. And that's when Chris Jones came to Edmonton and really turned the organization around, had a really good defense, strong defense that year. And, I was balling out all year. My best year of my career. It was a lot of fun. I was in a good place mentally, and I finally had my starting spot back, earned the coach's trust, and just playing loose, fast, free football. I actually was the team's most outstanding Canadian that year. So to be considered that in the CFL as a Canadian, that's pretty special to have that honor. And it earned me a new contract heading into the next year, and got a nice payday. So a lot of positive things happened after the 2014 season.
Yeah, and probably the most positive thing in your career, just winning that Grey Cup in Winnipeg, Manitoba. But before we get into that, best team in the regular season, having a guy like Mike Riley at QB who missed time due to injury in that season, and then you guys, in the Western final, go up against Calgary and beat them 45-31. Yeah, beat them to get to the Grey Cup to play the Ottawa Red Black. Just speak about that season leading up to the Grey Cup, of what made the Edmonton Eskimos as special as you guys were that year.
Well, first and foremost, our defense that year was arguably one of the best in CFL history in terms of touchdowns allowed, touchdowns that we on defense scored, interceptions, sacks. We did it all. We were probably one of the top 3 defenses to ever play in the CFL that year. And that's not me being biased. You just go and look at the numbers across the board. So our defense really was just lights out that year. Like you said, Mike Riley, whenever he's your quarterback behind center, you always have a shot. But he had gotten hurt that year, so he missed a few games early in the season. And he came back late in the year, not late, but around Labor Day. And we ended up winning the last 10 games of the season. So we went on a hot streak. We win first place in the West. When you win first place, you have a bye. So it was a perfect storm because we actually had our scheduled bye week at the end of the season. And then because we won first place, we had another bye week after that. So we had about 3 weeks in between us playing our last game and then playing in the West Final. So we were just so ultra fresh when we played Calgary. And Calgary actually knocked us out of the playoffs the year before in the West Final. So we were so fresh, and we were so hungry to beat them because obviously there's a huge rivalry between Edmonton and Calgary, and we wanted to just kick their butts so bad. And we came out and we blew them out. The score was flattering for them. They scored a couple late touchdowns. We blew them out that game. And I remember Commonwealth Stadium, it was just rocking. People, it was like a huge dance party in there. People were just celebrating, and they knew the game was over well before the whistle blew. And it was just such a cool vibe, such a cool atmosphere.
Yeah, it says a lot about the team because we always hear that saying, right? No lead is safe in the CFL. And to feel like the lead was safe, like you guys had that game secured pretty early on in the game after rolling those guys just speaks volumes about the performance that you guys put up that day at your home field in Commonwealth and Edmonton. But just speaking about that, having Mike Riley miss some time, a QB that's established himself year in and year out as a top 3 QB in the league, maybe arguably the best when he's at his best, just to have that next guy up mentality, and for you guys to do what you did when Riley wasn't on the field. How much did that speak about just not only the depth, but the coaching staff to put you guys in those right situations?
Well, and that's exactly it. It's that next guy up mentality. And the reality is it's not what happens to you, it's how you handle it. And so, our leader, he gets hurt early in the season, and we responded. The guys who came in did their role. They didn't have to come and be world beaters. They didn't have to come and throw a million touchdowns in order for us to win. Play a strong defensive game. Offense needs to score when they have their opportunities to capitalize on them. And that's really it. It's much simpler than people think, but it's trust too. You have to have that trust in the locker room. The quarterback who's coming in to fill Mike Riley's position, he needs to trust that the O-line is going to do their job. And the offense and as a whole needs to trust that the defense is going to do our job and stop the other team from scoring. And all you need to do is score one more point than the other team. And we're pretty darn good at scoring points on defense. So that took a lot of pressure off the offense too, because when you're scoring pick sixes or taking fumble recoveries back to the house for a touchdown, that just takes so much pressure off the offense that they feel like they have to score every time they get it. And that's what we were doing that year on defense.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, we'll continue talking about that Grey Cup season in just a moment. We're going to go to another commercial break. I'll be back with Eddie Steele, former CFL defensive tackle, 2015 Grey Cup champion, and football advisor for MCN Sports Advising and Skill Development. I'll be right back with him to continue talking about his CFL career in just a moment here on Coffee with Graeme on ASTV. Stick with us.
Welcome to Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot Mountain Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.
Welcome back to Coffee with Graeme on ASTV Productions. Eddie Steele, former CFL defensive tackle and 2015 Grey Cup champion, MCN Sports sports advising and skill development football advisor, joining me on the show here tonight on this Wednesday night on this live edition of Coffee with Graeme. We're going to continue talking about Eddie's experience of winning the Grey Cup back in 2015 with the Edmonton Eskimos. Just an insane team, a great team. And like you said, one of the all-time great defenses. Just speak about, playing for a defense like that, like you said, in your opinion, considered one of the all-time great defenses in the CFL.
Yeah, it's special just to have a role on that defense and be established and be a captain. I was captain on that team, and statistically, nobody had just outrageous seasons, but we all had great seasons, and it was as a combined unit, and that's what made that so special that season. And we just played so fast, and we knew going into every game that if we did our job and our preparation throughout the week was thorough, that we're going to be able to put a beat down on every offense in the CFL. And that's pretty much what we did. And it was a lot of fun. When you get that momentum on defense the way we had it and get the stadiums rocking, or if you're on the road and you get the stadium quiet, you're doing something right. And that's a phenomenal feeling.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, you guys in the Grey Cup, just a great whole team effort to battle back against the Ottawa Red Blacks. Just speak about, first off, what it was like just entering into that game and experiencing that atmosphere of playing in the Grey Cup, not only the Grey Cup, but in your hometown of Winnipeg.
Yeah, it was really special. I mean, warming up before the game, I looked up in the stadium and you see all these people, friends from the past, old school teachers, just old familiar faces, and they're all there and they're screaming your name. And it was really special just to see all those people, to be able to play in front of your family and your friends, and in the biggest game of your career, the biggest game of the season for a Grey Cup. It's epic. It really is epic. And to get to do it at home, again, the timing of my career, how things have worked out. How often has the Grey Cup been in Winnipeg? Since I remember, the last time it was I want to say 05 maybe, when it was BC in it. And, for it to be in 15 when our team is so good and I'm on that team and I get to come home and play in the Grey Cup, it's amazing how it happened and how it unfolded for my career. And you mentioned we had to rally back because we got down 13-0 really quick. Our offense did a couple quick 2-and-outs, and defense gave up a couple quick scores. I remember Henry Burris for Ottawa. He came out slinging it. And I remember looking at a couple teammates on the sideline thinking, we got to get this thing going because you're down 13-0 quick. They had all the momentum. But we settled in and clawed our way back and ended up winning the game. I don't want to say handily, but we ended up winning it pretty good. I mean, we scored 23 points, and they scored 5 points to our 23. I think the final score is 23-18. So, that just goes to show you how once we settled in, we kind of took it to them.
Yeah, and I was at that game, and I think it was like somewhere near the top row, and I remember it being extremely cold. I remember at Ottawa coming out and going up 13-0, and you guys battling back. Just for you guys to battle back like that in a Grey Cup game, after going down like that, just how much did it speak to your guys' fight as a team overall, pairing that with the skill?
Major fight, major fortitude, no quit. And again, like I said, we knew once we got settled in that we'd be all right. But you're jittery, and they're pro football players on the other sideline too, and they're good. They're in the Grey Cup for a reason. And Henry Burris is a Hall of Famer, so got to give credit where credit's due. But yeah, once our offense got that first touchdown, and I think we got a field goal even initially, and it was 13-3. You settle in, and it just becomes an everyday football game. It's just this everyday football game's got all the marbles on the table. But, fortunately enough, we won and came out with this bad boy here.
Oh, there it is. There's that ring. What was that experience like of just getting that ring the first time you saw it, having it on your finger?
It was sweet. It was sweet. It was, it was. something I'll always remember, something that you work so hard. And what's even better than the ring, I think, is having my name engraved on the Grey Cup, because that's permanent. That's there forever. And not everybody who's even on the team gets their name engraved. It's only the actual 42 guys who are playing in the game. So, there's guys who are on the injured list, guys who are on the practice roster. They don't get that. So my name is on the Grey Cup forever. Long after I'm gone, you can go and look and you'll find my name on the Grey Cup, and that's pretty cool because you can't take history away.
Nope, can't take it away. That's for sure. And that's just amazing to have your name on a trophy like that. The highest achievement in CFL is winning the Grey Cup. It's what every team sets out to go for at the start of the season, and that's just unreal that you were able, not only you, but this Edmonton Eskimos team Edmonton Elks, I guess, the team. It's so tough calling them the Elks, not because it's a good name. It's just the Eskimos has been the name that we've called them forever, right? But other than that, just that Edmonton Elks team, I guess, just being able to do the things you guys did was great back in 2015. Just speaking about Mike Riley some more, just to see how he responded in that game, cementing himself as, that guy in the CFL.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he came out, didn't have a strong start, but he had quite a finish, and he's such a leader, and he's just so tough. He takes a beating and he gets up and keeps slinging it, keeps running the ball. And when your quarterback is doing that, it just makes you want to play so hard just to get his back. If he's putting his body on the line, because not many quarterbacks are like him. And it just amps up the entire team. And you just want to go out there and lay your body on the line too. Because when you see a quarterback doing it, you're thinking, man, we got to do this for him too. And above him being such a tough, good football player, he's just a great dude. He's a good guy in the locker room and good teammate, and that's the most important thing, honestly, and that's why guys want to play for him as well.
It's contagious, right? I bet, just being able to have a guy like that as your leader. Just going back to the Grey Cup one last time, just, lifting that trophy, just seeing the confetti pop, knowing you guys accomplished your goal after the disappointment from the season before, falling short in the game against Calgary. Just that whole experience of lifting the cup, seeing the confetti come down, knowing you guys are champions. How truly special is that?
Yeah, that's when you made it. And I had my then fiance on the field with me and my parents around me. And yeah, it was just such a special moment, and it's very surreal. And it's kind of all a blur. It just happens so fast, and you're flooded with emotions, and yeah, you've kind of reached the pinnacle. And just what a feeling it is. You've worked so hard, all the literal blood, sweat, and tears that go into accomplishing that. And it's a dream come true as a Canadian kid growing up, wanting to not just play pro football, but to win a Grey Cup. That's what I strive to do. And to finally do that, you've accomplished another goal, and you get to check that box off. And yeah, it was quite a party. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, bigger than the draft night party.
Oh, yeah, doesn't even compare.
Doesn't even compare. I bet. Just championship parties. Gotta have that championship, attendance for sure. No doubt about it.
And I mean, because we were the home team that year, because we had a better record, so that meant we stayed in the Bombers locker room. So that's where we had our locker room. Ottawa was in the visitors locker room all week for practice and the game. So yeah, we were firing up the cigars and spraying champagne all over the Bombers locker room. It was pretty sweet.
That's awesome. It's just an insane experience for you getting to go through that in 2015. Moving on to 2017, you end up becoming a Saskatchewan Roughrider. How did that opportunity come to be for you to, go from Edmonton to Saskatchewan?
I was due a big off-season roster bonus, and typical CFL fashion, it happens to guys all the time. I'm not the first and I'm not the last. Pretty much every off-season, when guys are due big bonuses, the team cuts them so they can get out of having to pay them that bonus. So that I was a casualty of that. So Edmonton cut me 2 days before my roster bonus was due. Pretty slimy, pretty greasy, but We don't need to go down that path right now. We could talk about that and just the greasy side of the business for a whole show. So Chris Jones, who was our coach in Edmonton when we won, he was in Saskatchewan at that point. Pretty much 5 minutes after I got released from Edmonton, he called me up and offered me quite a lucrative contract, and I signed the deal. It was a no-brainer for me, and it was pretty cool because Saskatchewan was just getting the brand new stadium there, and I know the passion that Rider Nation has, and they had a pretty good up-and-coming team too. So yeah, it was awesome to get to go there and play for them.
Yeah, and great for you to reunite with Chris Jones, the head coach that, of course, coached you guys to a Grey Cup in 2015 with Edmonton. Just speak about the impact that Chris Jones had on your playing career.
Yeah, big impact. He's probably one of the best coaches I've ever played for. And, I was for sure one of his guys. Coaches always have their guys, their favorites, the guys they can trust, captains, those types of guys they can lean on. So I was definitely one of his guys. And, yeah, it's pretty cool to have that type of relationship with your coach and to have the conversations we would have and just the trust that he had in me to do different things and many different types of roles. Like I was a very athletic defensive lineman, so he would have me dropping into coverage a lot of the time and doing just odd things that lots of D linemen don't do. And, just to have the coaching staff trust you and to know that you're going to do your job, it's a pretty special thing. And I like him as a coach just because, again, he's aggressive, he's no nonsense, and he flat out just wants to win. And that's what I admire and I love about him.
I gotta ask you this. What's the story with Chris Jones and always wearing the shades, even though if it's sunny or cloudy outside? I always found that a bit bizarre when it's cloudy, he's wearing the shades. Maybe we could get your insight on that.
Sunny, cloudy at nighttime, and it's not just shades, it's black. He'd always wear black attire, always black from head to toe. I don't know, man. I think that's just his bad boy mojo. I don't know exactly what that is, but yeah, that's typical Chris Jones. He practiced everywhere he's like that.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, I do remember always wearing black and, of course, the shades. And you know what? Maybe he'll reveal to us what his secret is. Maybe he's just superstitious, and that's one of the things he does. But
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, for sure. Just speaking about your last season, you finished with the second most sacks in your career that year, your final year in the CFL. Just what was that decision like to retire after that season of spending some successful seasons in the CFL?
Yeah, it was to a degree it was challenging, but on the other side of the coin it was really easy. I was kind of getting to a point just with my family life, my home life with my wife and my child, now children, but it was a kid one at that point in time. Just is ready to move on from football, ready to get out of the game healthy. Most guys don't get out healthy. I tell people there's only 3 ways out of pro football, and that's you get hurt, you get cut, or on your own terms. And so few guys get to actually go out on their own terms. And, I ended on a high note. I definitely could have come back and played some more football because I had a good season. And I actually was able to turn a couple of teams down as I was retiring. A couple teams were trying to sign me, and I was, no, I'm at peace with it. I'm good. I had a good opportunity to transition into post-football life with work. And most guys, that transition is pretty sloppy and it's pretty tough. And guys are really kind of left in no man's land. They don't know what to do with themselves. Thankfully, I have a wonderful, strong backbone of a wife, and she really had my back and really was encouraging me. And so it was an easy transition for me. And I was really at peace with the decision, actually. Selfishly, did I want to play one more year just to say I played a decade, 10 years of pro football? Sure. But, in hindsight, looking back at it, with how the pandemic has affected things and with where I'm at in my work career now, say I would have played one more year in 2019 and then I would have retired and having to transition into the career I'm doing now. Well, after that season, 4 months later is when the pandemic hit. So I probably wouldn't have been as established I am in the business. I probably would have had a lot more anxiety about things because I'm in sales. So I do a lot of cold calling and things like that. And everywhere was shut down, So it all works out for a reason, and I'm so thankful. I can't overemphasize enough how thankful I am I retired when I did, and how grateful I am for my time in the league. But there's an end for everybody, and most guys, they don't know when to call it, and they try and play till the wheels fall off. And typically those are the guys that end up the most figuratively broken, not actual physically, but in other phases of their life, they end up very broken and very lost. So yeah, I'm very thankful for when I retired.
Yeah, and of course, like, you got a wife now, kids, and you're living your dream of still being involved in the sport and selling some stuff as well, which is great. But as a pro football player in the CFL, when people look back at Eddie Steele's career, what do you want people to remember the most about who Eddie Steele was as a player?
First and foremost, good teammate, good guy. I did a ton of stuff in the community. Every team I played on, any community appearance they approached me with, I jumped on it. Leader. I was a captain on every team I played for, going back to high school football, college football, every team I played on in the pros. But yeah, just a good teammate. Of course, you want to be known as a good football player, but I feel like that's secondary. Just a guy who's willing to help others, who's nice, who's kind, and who was able to still get after it on the football field and have some good success. And it's pretty cool. They came out with this all-decade team back a few months ago, half a year ago, I'd say, and there was a first-team all-decade team and a second-team all-decade team. And for the defensive line, it's 4 guys on the first team, 4 on the second team. And I was actually voted a second team all decade. Wow. So, there's 2 inside guys, 2 outside guys. So I was one of the top 4 at my position throughout the past decade. And that's pretty special. And the other guys who are on the list are just absolute ballers. I feel like I don't even deserve to be on the same list as them. Ted Laurent Mondo, who I played with in Edmonton, Micah Johnson, who's been a beast in the CFL, and me. So we're the 4 best D tackles voted on by fans and the media over the past 10 years in the CFL. So that's it's kind of a nice little icing on top of the cake. And again, that's something where I forget about so often, that I actually was an all-decade player. But when you talk about it, you're reminded, and it's cool to look back and think and reflect on the accolades of your career.
Yeah, for sure. And you definitely got rewarded in a way with that, just being named to the second team all decade team, which is awesome. And yeah, just looking into this season now from a fan's perspective, we got some great games coming up in opening week, starting off tomorrow. I mean, my favorite team, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, in a Grey Cup rematch at home at IG Field against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Then we got the Riders and the Lions, the Stamps and the Argos, and the Elks and the Red Blacks. Just how exciting is it for you, being a former player, getting to sit back and watch these games this week and this weekend, just knowing CFL football is back, baby?
I'm so happy. I can't wait. I love football. I love the game. And I just am so thrilled to be able to finally watch it and see guys I played with, guys I've trained with over the years, guys who I've coached back in the past when I was in Winnipeg. I'm so excited. When I was in Winnipeg, I was a part of a company called Recruit Ready, and Nick Dembski's come up through the program. Brady Olivier has come up through the program. Zach Williams, who's an O-lineman in Calgary. There's guys all over the CFL who have come through the program. So I'm so excited to see those guys ball out. And actually, not just a fan this year. I'm working with 630 Ched, who calls the Elks games. So it's our version of CJOB out here in Edmonton. Yeah. So they opened up a slot for me back when there was football in 2019. I did 3 pregame shows that year. And this year, I'm a full permanent member of the team. I'm doing every pregame, halftime, and postgame show on the radio station, home and away games. So I guess you could say I'm media now. So I'm looking forward to being involved in the game on that aspect and on that end of things, and getting to do some radio work and just still stay plugged into the game.
Yeah, going to be entertaining to hear a legend like Eddie Steele talking some Edmonton Elks football. Just speaking about the Elks, of course, Trevor Harris as the QB. You got Greg Ellingson, Darrell Walker. That's just talking about some of the guys on the offense. Just what are your expectations looking at this Edmonton Elks squad this year, heading into a season where, like every team, haven't been able to play football since 2019?
You know what? Expectations, I think they'll be good offensively just because it's such a quarterback-driven league. And when you have a good quarterback like Trevor, that's huge. That helps that goes a long way, even if you haven't played ball in a long time. Not to mention, like you said, the weapons around him. But I'll be honest with you, I'm expecting some sloppy football the first couple of weeks. I'm expecting the tackling to be pretty poor because these guys haven't played any preseason games and they haven't had any real contact in the past 2 years. And you need to condition your body for that type of contact and to be able to tackle effectively and properly. So I think it's going to be fairly sloppy, but, who's kidding who? I'm just happy there's football, much like yourself, and that we get to enjoy and just be back and watching the CFL game and just be united as a Canadian league again, coast to coast, and, get to watch our ball. I can't wait.
Do you feel like, obviously, with players in this league not being in football since playing a season in 2019, the lack and no preseason games this year, do you feel like we could be seeing a lot more injuries than usual early on in the season this year due to that?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. Because, again, your body's not conditioned. And I just was having this conversation yesterday with a former teammate, and everybody talks about football shape. Like, you got to be in football shape. And what most people think is your cardio. You got to be in good cardio shape. But actually what football shape is being conditioned to getting hit, being conditioned to hitting the turf and getting back up and going next play, and just having your body used to that type of contact. So when you haven't done it for so long, of course, you lose that sense. So you got to get yourself back in football shape, and not just conditioning, but the contact, the physicality. That's really what football shape is. And it'll be interesting to see, who can adapt quickly. And I really do think there will be some injuries. Knock on wood, never want to see guys get hurt, but that's just the inevitability of football in general, not just pro, but at any level. There's going to be injuries. So.
You spoke about how this is such a quarterback-driven league, and it truly is. And, you see guys like Bo Levi, Mike Riley, Trevor Harris, then you got your Mazzolis, your Vernon Adams, Caleros, Fajardo, Nichols, Arbuckle, and, a lot of great QBs in this league. Just how excited are you to see the type of play from the quarterbacks we're going to see this season in the CFL?
I can't wait. I think it's going to be a good year for the quarterbacks. But with that being said, early on, I think the defenses will dominate more because offense is all about timing. And when you haven't had those game reps, like, what you would do in a preseason, practice only goes so far. So you need to have those actual live game reps. And I think some of the timing will be off. But I think come late in the season after the Labor Day, offenses will really start to be humming again and finding their groove, and it's going to be a heck of a season, even though it's only 14 games, and we're already at Labor Day almost. It's going to be a heck of a September on through the playoffs, I can assure you of that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I know that the Bombers are ready to defend their title, of course. We're fired up here in Winnipeg to see us go for those back-to-back Grey Cups. Hamilton, with the Grey Cup being in Hamilton this year, definitely a great squad led by Jeremiah Mazzoli. Then you got your Calgarys, your Saskatchewan. Montreal is going to be really good this year, in my opinion. Just so many great teams. What do you think in terms of how these teams stack up? Would you say Bombers are the favorite coming in, or would you be leaning towards the field at this point?
In my opinion, top three teams are going to be Hamilton, Winnipeg, Calgary. But again, Montreal is going to have a good team. The thing about Calgary, and as much as I hate them, I respect the crap out of them, because whenever you have Bo Levi Mitchell, you're always in a game. And whenever you have a John Huffnagel run organization, you're going to be good, because he just finds talent and they develop talent really well. But Winnipeg, they got a good team. I'm a big Zach Caleros fan. I was his teammate, played against him before when he was in Hamilton and in Toronto in his very early days. And I've always been a Caleros fan. He gets a bad knock around the CFL by fans, but they don't realize how much of a baller he really is. And Hamilton, they're stacked. They got a team full of studs too. So it's going to be a crazy year, man. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, and going back to Caleros, I'm with you, Matt. I don't get why the guy gets so much hate. He doesn't put up these crazy amount of stats, right? But it's not really like in an offense like the Bombers. You got, an all-time great like Andrew Harris in the backfield. And let me tell you, I remember going to, I think it was their final regular season game in 2019 against Calgary. Zach made some crazy magician-like play, scrambled, found the back of the end zone to, I think, Darvin Adams. Probably the best play throw I've seen live in any football game. So the hate for Zach, not warranted here. He's going to do some great things this year. And yeah, I'm excited for this season. And you know what? If some CFL stuff comes about, I'd love to have you on the show to talk about it, Eddie. It's been a great time tonight getting to know who Eddie Steele is and just what you went through your career and just the ups and downs you went through, as well as the full circle moments as well. It was great getting to meet you and talk to you tonight, Eddie. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I want to apologize for being so dark. My curtains were open, and it was bright early when we started, but it's dark now. I got to apologize.
Yeah, no worries. I did notice that, and I am noticing that it was light out when we started, and now it's good old nighttime. So I'm gonna let you go, let you get some rest. I gotta get up early tomorrow morning and work. So yeah, Eddie, we'll do this again sometime if you're down for it. It was a lot of fun, man. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Thanks, Graeme. Take care.
Awesome. Eddie Steele, former CFL defensive tackle, 2015 Grey Cup champion, and MCN Sports Advising and Skills Development Football Advisor, joining the show tonight. I'll be back without Eddie after this final commercial break to give you guys some final words on this edition of Coffee with Graeme. Stick with me. I'll be back in just a moment.
At Super 8 Winnipeg West, we have your comfort in mind, with free Wi-Fi and free daily Superstart breakfast. We also have guest laundry facilities, a state-of-the-art fitness center, and a jetted hot tub. Sleep well in a spacious guest room equipped with plush new bedding, a 50-inch flat-screen HD TV, microwave, mini refrigerator, and Keurig coffee maker. Or book a suite with a kitchen, ideal for extended stays. Super 8 Winnipeg West, located just inside the perimeter on Portage Avenue.
Welcome back to Coffee with Graeme on ASTV Productions. Wow, getting to interview a former CFLer, a Grey Cup champion, just a surreal moment tonight, just getting to talk to Eddie Steele from Winnipeg, Manitoba. And, he's going to be doing some things in the media this year with the Edmonton Elks, which is so exciting to see just players, from pro football just taking that next step and going into the media. Always great to get their perspective on the game because they are the ones that played the game. And I think that getting their perspective is more valuable than anything else in this world. But yeah, I want to thank Eddie for coming on the show tonight and being the guest. Hope to talk to him again in the future because, man, this was a lot of fun tonight. I also want to thank all of the viewers. Yes, you, the viewer, for tuning in tonight and watching Coffee with Graeme on this Wednesday. It's 10:28 p.m. right now. I'm not going to be much longer. I just also want to thank the sponsors as well in Coffee with Graeme tonight, the official sponsors of Coffee with Graeme, mostly, and Fabricland, Winkler, and Evolve Green for sponsoring tonight's episode. And yeah, for Coffee with Graeme, I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time for an all-new edition of the show. You can catch it on our Facebook at ASTV Productions and on our website at astvproductions.com. We only go on Twitter on our live shows because it's not set up for submitting stuff, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, you guys can catch that episode tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time on our Facebook and on our website as well. And yeah, I'll be joined by Kurt Leckman, general manager of a baseball team in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League the MJBL of the Altona Bisons. It was great getting to catch up with him. We did the interview earlier today, and it was great just getting to talk with Kurt, and I can't wait for you guys to watch that one tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. I'll see you guys then, but until then, have a wonderful rest of your night. Get to sleep if you got work in the morning because you want to be up and at 'em and ready to go for the day. But yeah, until tomorrow morning, folks, I've been your host of Coffee with Graeme Forsyth, signing off now. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Stay safe out there. And until tomorrow morning, I'll see you then. Peace.